First, it was Brady Tkachuk. Next, it's Jake Debrusk? Maybe? I don't know. We'll see. Today, we're diving into a whole bunch of Vancouver Canucks-related news, notes, and rumors, courtesy of Rick Dhaliwal, courtesy of David Pagnotta, who made an appearance on Sakaris and Price earlier this morning. There's a lot to dive into with the Canucks, so let's dive straight into it here. Rick Dhaliwal tweeted this out earlier in the afternoon. He has been told that Teddy Blueger and Derek Forbort will both be hitting the free agent market on July 1st. Now, this can be seen as a pretty bad thing for Vancouver Canucks fans. Hey, wait a minute. You're telling me that Teddy Blueger was a center that the Canucks could have traded at the deadline, and then they didn't trade him because they wanted to keep him and now he's going away for free? Yeah. There can be some panic lights flashing about because of the Teddy Blueger news. But I will say this, the more I think about it and the more I analyze just what happened in 2025, 2026, it becomes a lot easier to accept just how Vancouver could not have traded Teddy Blueger and they couldn't get themselves a return that was actually meaningful in any way. The guy had his stock tank at the Olympics because he didn't really do too well. He was injured for half the year, and the fact that he was just barely coming off of an injury heading into trade deadline period, that's when I think a lot of folks started to say maybe Teddy Blueger isn't really the most necessary add for our hockey team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yes, it's true. Blueger was a pretty good player holistically when you look at the body of work he had accomplished while he was in the lineup. But the fact that he missed so much time and the fact that Vancouver was so bad, I do see why Teddy Blueger wasn't really as valued as a trade chip on the market. Derek Forbort, on the other hand, yeah, there was no way the Vancouver Canucks could have traded this dude. He only had 2 games played. He just wasn't an option for the Vancouver Canucks. He was not healthy. And even though it's been reported that him and his leadership is a potential candidate to stay in Vancouver, this new update that they are both hitting the market, it's not really surprising. And also, I understand that, a lot of people would be a little ticked off of what happened over here. But you gotta also remember, the management core that kept Teddy Blueger and decided not to trade him back in March, that management core ain't here anymore. Patrick Allvin's gone. Rutherford's now a senior advisor. It's Henrik, Daniel, and Ryan Johnson all in the driver's seat now. Maybe they just didn't really see the same value in Teddy Blueger that those other guys did. Oh, we are keeping him, so we're not going to trade him. We're going to hold on to this guy, and then we want to bring him back because he's a leadership player down the middle. But then it's like, wait a minute, you've got Pettersson, you've got Rossi, you've got Ratu, and then you've got Braden Coots or whomever else. Do you even have room for Blueger? Seems like you don't. With that said, let's shift gears over onto some other Vancouver Canucks guys that actually have contracts beyond this previously completed season and dive into what David Pagnotta said on Sakaris and Price, courtesy of Canucks News Summaries. Big shout out to Canucks News Summaries. You're always giving us the scoop. We love the work that you do. First, Pagnotta speaks out on Brock Boeser, and he says that teams are poking around, and he is one of the players that is being talked about. The UFA market is thin, and teams are realizing they need to trade for top 6 upgrades. The Boston Bruins have circled back on Boeser to an extent. His name has started to get out there in the last week, and the Canucks are listening to him. Trade talks around the Vancouver Canucks. Pagnotta says that chatter has mostly been around Boeser, Debrusk, and Elias Pettersson. He would be surprised if all 3 of them are traded this offseason, though. You also have Drew O'Connor's name that fluctuates on the market in terms of availability. Teams have poked around on him. I do find it interesting that Pagnotta is saying, yeah, I would be surprised if all 3 of Debrusk and Boeser and Pettersson were traded at the same offseason. I do understand the rationale that it's like, hey, you gotta have at least some veteran guys. You can't just trade away everybody. You can't do the full-on DiCaprio rebuild. I think idealistically that would be the right thing to do, but I can understand from a team-building professional hockey league perspective, They want to at least have some players over the age of 25, some veteran names to really help the younger players come into their own. There then is a conversation on Jake Debrusk. Pagnotta says this: the Canucks are trying to find a destination for him. The Sens, the Blue Jackets, the Canadiens, the Flyers, and the Kraken have all been linked to Jake Debrusk. There is a strong level of interest. Oh boy. The Montreal Canadiens getting in on Debrusk? That'd be pretty cool. Now, I don't think he would be immune to criticism in Montreal, but I do think that Jake Debrusk can add some secondary scoring to a power play unit that might actually need it. Keep that in the back of our heads as we continue on. Pagnotta wonders if the Brady Tkachuk trade has a domino effect on the trade market, and the Vancouver Canucks are a popular team to negotiate with because of the assets they are willing to listen on. Debrusk's age, consistent goal-scoring, cap hit, and term are all very appealing. He's only making $5.5 million a year till the end of 2032, and for a guy that can potentially get upwards of 20-plus goals a year, that's not that bad. Pagnotta says that Debrusk has an equivalent value of a first-round pick and a prospect, perhaps with an additional asset. And he would imagine that Boeser's value is even more than Jake Debrusk's. Oh my goodness, man. You're saying that Jake Debrusk can go for a first plus, and then Brock Boeser can go for even more than that? Oh, baby. Let me just take it all in for a moment. When you talk about these teams, okay, Boston is apparently interested in Brock Boeser. 23rd overall pick coming over to Van? They're going to have 23 and 24? Let's get the Ruck Twins, baby. Jake Debrusk over to Montreal, 28. Package 28 plus 33 for another top 15 pick. Use 23 and 24 to get the Ruck Twins. Take somebody 3rd overall, and then somebody else in the 15th overall spot. That's a really great draft plan, man. Oh boy, David Pagnotta. I absolutely love the way that he's going out there and hyping up these Vancouver Canucks trade targets. Jake Debrusk, a first-round pick and a prospect and another pick, and Brock Boeser can be seen as taking even more to get in a trade. Boston, please trade for this guy. It only makes sense. Boston Bruins, Brock Boeser, the quadruple alliteration, B, the B to the power of 4s over there, baby. I love the sound of that. Jake Debrusk also could go to Ottawa, Columbus, Canadiens, Flyers. I mean, think about it here. The Ottawa Senators are not allowed to trade this pick. It's been heavily documented that 32nd overall is staying in Ottawa, but they do have the 25th overall pick that was acquired via the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they also have themselves the 9th overall pick, which was taken from the Florida Panthers. Both of these picks, by the way, acquired for Brady Tkachuk. It's just this 25th overall pick happens to be Tampa's. Could Vancouver get something like that in an Ottawa Senators trade for Jake Debrusk? I think it's pretty reasonable, especially when you have Aaron Portzline going out there and saying that Columbus should give 14th overall for Jake Debrusk. It seems like a lot of these out-of-market reporters have a lot more value attached to Jake Debrusk as a trade asset than a lot of folks here on the Vancouver side of things do. That's just what I'm observing, and if Brock Boeser goes for a little more, then I'd be very happy with that. Maybe the Canucks should just keep Elias Pettersson, trade Boeser, trade Debrusk, and give those winger spots to Lekaramaki and whomever else. And then finally, at the bottom of this slide here, the center trade market. There are several names out there, Pavel Zacha and Matt Barzal, where its teams are kicking tires. The Islanders do not want to trade Barzal unless it's for an offer they can't refuse, and the same goes for Pavel Zacha. You make me an offer I can't refuse. Okay, I can't do a Marlon Brando. Sorry. I can sort of do the Jordan Belfort, Leo DiCaprio, but nah, Brando's out of my range. And then at the bottom, teams are poking around on Ryan McLeod. Now, McLeod was really good in Buffalo. We'll see what happens with him. But this Debrusk and Boeser update, oh boy, I love the sound of that. Can we see potentially the 23rd overall pick coming over to Vancouver from Boston in a Brock Boeser deal? What about the, goodness forbid, the 9th overall pick, the 28th overall pick from Montreal? How does that sound? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. How do you feel about these Canucks trade rumors? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.